What is up, degenerates? Welcome back to the Die Hard MMA podcast. I am your host, as always, your guy Clint, sitting here coming to you on a Monday evening. Welcome to the breakdown for UFC Vegas 59. We're right here on Pub Sports Radio. We've got lines presented to us by Superbook Sports, and we are going to have a damn good time talking about betting and breaking down this entire dang card. What's up, everybody? We've already got 30 live people hanging out with us in the chat. We've got Alan Loves MMA. We got Bob. We've got Michael Lunday Buffo on the beat. The Grateful Dude. Ryan Grant. We've got Doug Finch. Josh in the house. Justin Vlaas. Andy G. What's up, everybody? James. Nigel Lee. How's everybody doing? Thank you all so much once again for hanging out with me and having a good time talking about the best damn sport under the sun. Elephant in the room. I got my ass handed to me last week. It was not a good time at UFC 277. And why is this thing not full screen? I can't figure out for the life of me why this damn thing isn't full screen today. So guys, I don't know who messed up my settings. I don't know who at Pub Sports Radio is playing around with the video settings on this damn thing or how to fix it. So I apologize that I'm in this weird little background situation thing going on right now instead of being full screen. I'll try to figure it out and see if we can get it fixed for next time, but is what it is for this show, I guess. So last week, rough week, obviously, for a lot of us. It was pretty hilarious when the haters were in the, the comment section of the chat keyboard talking about how Don'Tale Mayes was such an awful pick. Y'all bet Don'Tale Mayes too. You bet Don'Tale Mayes. I don't want to hear shit about Don'Tale Mayes. Every single one of us was in that boat and we all went down together Titanic style. So shut up. Needless to say, guys, we are going to brush it off. We're going to get right back to work. As you all know, I'm telling you what I am betting. You can put your money where you see fit. You're a grown-ass adult and can gamble where you want to. And I am not afraid. To make this show fun content only. If I have to go, you know what? I suck so bad at betting that I'm just going to scrap the record. I'm no longer going to track my picks. I'm just going to be fun, and I'll bring on real sports bettors and handicappers to take care of that part of the show. I will do it. But my pride at this point is still too great. I'm not pulling the plug on that yet. I'm going to dig my ass out of this hole. We've been profitable since the show started. I tweeted out the numbers a little earlier today. And yes, this is the biggest slump I've ever been in since we started the podcast. So we are down over the 40 unit mark this year, which is awfully embarrassing to say. However, I do just want to remind everybody that year one of doing the podcast plus 19 units, year three of the podcast plus 34 units, year two was a negative 10 unit year, but basically I am up 0.66 units since the podcast inception. So we haven't dipped all the way back into the negative, but it doesn't feel great to be where we're at. So we got some work to do. That work starts now, and that work is going to get us helped out by one of the OG guests of the show, one of the fan favorites, none other than the president of U.S. Integrity, my guy, Matt Halt. Matt, how you doing today?
Clint, how we doing, my man?
We are doing. I mean, I would be lying to you if I said I was doing great, because it doesn't feel good getting your ass kicked over the weekend betting, but can't complain besides that. How are you doing today, man?
Great. Look, I actually lucked out a little bit last week. So I had made a big bet on Pantoja, and that was all I had bet early. And then I was actually at Stations Casino, or at Green Valley Ranch near my house with my brother, and we were getting ready to do some stuff that day. And I looked at the sheet, and of course, Dontel Mays was minus 125 on the sheet for they put out that morning on Saturday. I walked up to the kiosk. I said, wow, at 125, I have to take him. Said minus 210. I said, heck no, minus 210. I mean, obviously, I'm like, wow, I had missed it so much. That's the only reason I didn't end up on Dante, because I was so late to the game. Otherwise, I would have been riding that train off the cliff with everybody else. And it actually saved me because I just bet a couple totals that hit. And the only side bet I had was Pantoja. Call it a night, 3-0. Let's get out of here.
Hey, you did about the best anybody could have done on that kind of a card. The only people I know who did okay and made money last week, Matt, are the people that did exactly what you did and had 2 or 3 bets. Anybody that went larger than 2 or 3 bets got absolutely ragdolled. Some of the best bettors on MMA Twitter, some of the guys I respect the most, all took L's. You know, guys like Lucrative MMA took an L. I think Andrew Gombas that comes on the show, he didn't get a win either. Cody Saftik, like he had Dontel Mays on that top ticket of his. All of us just went down in flames if you did more than 1 or 2 bets. So, yeah, rough night for pretty much everybody. I'm glad you got out with your skin intact.
Yeah, I mean, it was one of those cards that was a little tricky because there were so many heavy favorites early on where I think it kept the early betting away. Normally we see the betting for a pay-per-view really start the week before, a pay-per-view. But this time there were so many chalks, it kept the betting away. I know a couple people that laid heavy lumber on Amanda Nunes. And I had actually jumped in a little bit, but then I saw the weigh-in and was like, I don't know. She looks like Skeletor. That's not so great. And so I didn't put any more on her. And it was the rest of the card was tricky. You don't want to lay those big favorites, but the dogs didn't perform in those cases, and the favorites got it done.
It was unfortunate, Matt, because I more than not laid the chalk, but of course those were the dog barking situations. I picked the untrustworthy favorites to go ahead and lay it with. I mean, Dontel had his guy dead to rights in round 2, couldn't quite get it done. Semi the Jedi, Matt Simmelsberger, he needed about 15, 20 more seconds probably in round 2 to get a TKO stoppage. If he gets that takedown just 30 seconds earlier, he probably finishes the fight there in round 2. And the biggest one for me, though, Matt, was Ji-Yoon Kim. She had that fight in the bag. Edwards had absolutely nothing left to give after missing that armbar deep in round 3, and she decided to re-engage in the grappling. One of the worst IQ fight decisions I've seen in my time as an MMA fan. Just really, really rough for her to dive straight on back into it against the bigger girl in the one area she was having success in the fight and sell that 3rd round down the river. But you know what? That's why we love this sport. Like things like that happen that are unexpected, out of our control. It's kind of what we sign up for. Betting on MMA is basically an exercise in masochism. The one thing I think we learned, though, Matt, is anytime someone comes into the UFC, limited experience or not, bad weight cut, short notice, whatever, if they have Olympic wrestling credentials, those guys just seem to know how to win. Daniel Cormier was talking about it on the live feed, and it just really rang true with me that in that 3rd round, he was exhausted. He had gotten beaten up. He almost got knocked out the round before, but he sat on Dontel May's chest and did exactly what he had to do to get the win. He's used to big crowds, used to pressure, used to performing when the chips are down. That Olympic caliber background is something that we as a whole in the community underestimated, and I will not be underestimating again. I don't care how fraudulent you are. I don't care how short notice you are. If you've got 2 professional fights, if you're an Olympic caliber wrestler, I am not laying a chalk price tag against you, especially when you're just getting started against lower level competition in the UFC.
Well, the UFC has a history of Olympic level athletes doing really well. I mean, look at Triple C, whether you like him or hate him, and a lot of people don't like him. He was the first guy to beat Demetrius Johnson in the UFC, and then went on to become a 2-weight champion. Daniel Cormier, a 2-weight champion. I mean, the history of Olympic athletes then coming over to the UFC is really positive.
Yeah, absolutely is. And I honestly thought that it would take some time to adjust. It would take some time for him to get his feet wet in the organization and proved that he was already ready to come in and had the tools to go ahead and get it done. So, like I said, my bad. We shorted the dude a little bit, and that's something that as bettors we got to learn from and try and move forward and do a better job of. But let's get into this card here, Matt. There's some fun fights. It's the Ultimate Fighter 30 finale, so we've got a couple of unknowns, and they always stack up these cards pretty well with some, familiar faces and positive things. So I think we got a good card here for us to get into this evening. As always, everybody, the show lines are brought to you by Superbook Sports. Make sure you go check them out. The lines are always fair and fantastic over there. I love working with Superbook Sports. We got to thank them and shout them out for the show sponsorship every time. Actually, it's really funny. So a lot of people have given me shit about the show sponsorship with Superbook Sports, and it's all noise. I don't care. It's fine, guys. I let it roll off. But the funniest part about it is my contact over with Superbook Sports, Andrew, the guy that comes on the Friday post weigh-in show to give us the sharp action report every once in a while. He DM'd me over the weekend and was like, man, we're your bad luck charm right now, aren't we? Like, he noticed I've gotten my ass kicked basically ever since I joined up with Superbook Sports. Just one of those things. Obviously, very unintentional and just a random coincidence, but he did make notice of it and kind of made fun of me for it a little bit this morning. So had to pass that along. It was a little humorous. First fight of the night, we've got Mayra Bueno Silva taking on Stephanie Egger in what honestly is kind of a banger to kick the night off here, Matt. This is a lower level women's MMA fight, but both these women know how to throw down. This one is going to be fun. Mayra Bueno Silva is 8-2-1. Stephanie Egger is 7-2. Mayra Bueno really heavy on her feet, likes to walk down her opponents, come forward, heavy high-level ground game. If she gets to the ground, her submissions are nasty, but she really prefers to strike. She likes to keep it on the feet. She's got good Muay Thai. She is nasty in that Muay Thai clinch. She has heavy knees, big power in her clinch, and honestly, underrated power in her hands. She sat a couple people down with some punches. She dropped Wu Yanan in the first round of her last fight. She almost relies on her opponent to force the grappling to get it to the mat. I mean, she's starting to remind me a little bit of a female version of Charlie O, Charles Oliveira here in what she's trying to put together for her game. She does tend to frustrate me a little bit when she gets tagged by her opponent. She kind of backs up and shakes, does the no. You didn't hurt me with that shot. And that's a little bit of mind games, but you're not throwing back. So your opponent is outscoring you, even though you're trying to show them that they didn't hurt you, that kind of a thing. So that can be a little frustrating, but you know what? She is willing to cheat and die in that cage, Matt. Fence grabs all day. She gets warned every fight like 3 times for grabbing the fence. So those of you that have access to DK, if you're looking for, to quote my guy Lou, yam bags, if you're trying to get one of those point deduction props going, Mayra Bueno Silva will send you in the right direction there for that. Stephanie Egger, she's got judo hips. This girl knows how to throw people around the cage. Back-to-back finish wins over Young and Rose Clark. Everyone counted her out after dropping her UFC debut, and she came back and showed us that she really does, in fact, belong here. And I know I cashed her against Rose Clark. I think I bet against her in the Shannon Young fight. So I think I'm 1-1 on Stephanie Egger, but I'm overall high on her compared to, I think, the market kind of. Everybody is piling on now. Egger opened up as a slight underdog, and this line is chugging her direction. We now have a pick'em price tag on our hands here. Stephanie Egger versus Mayra Bueno Silva. Egger will have a 2-inch reach advantage. What do you think here, Matt? Do you have any read on this first fight of the night? Anything that you want to jump in on here?
So when I first just looked at him on paper, I kind of liked Bueno Silva in this situation. Her level of competition's really strong when you look at some of the people that she's fought, including Manon Fiorot and even Montana De La Rosa's no pushover. She actually has a win over Jillian Robertson, who's pretty steady. That's a tough girl right there. So I thought, boy, I like the level of competition. But then I started watching a little bit of the fights. Sometimes on Sundays, if I have time, I'll start watching some fights on Fight Pass of the Monday fighters. And because this was a fight that really stuck out to me. And the more I started thinking about this fight, I said, look, where has Bueno Silva been good? And lately, it's only been when she gets people in an armbar. Basically, that's how she wins in the UFC. It's by armbar or nothing, including the Jillian Robertson fight. And sometimes we see fighters make a change, and not just a change in their skill set or their technical abilities, but their willingness to engage and take risks to finish. Egger was a pure decision fighter, and 4 fights ago, something switched for her. And I don't know exactly what it was in her training camp, but her last 3 wins all come by finish. And the loss she suffered was because she was aggressive going for finishes. So I like the fact that I can feel good that I have a 4-fight recent history of Egger being really aggressive. I think she's going to throw more strikes. I think she's going to throw more volume on the feet. And at the end of the day, if this one goes by decision, I think Bueno Silva is going to have a hard time winning a decision here. I think her only shot is to get it on the ground to get an armbar in. I don't like betting on people that have to win by armbar. Give me Egger as long as it's a pick, because I think she's probably going to close around the 140 mark.
Okay. Honestly, Matt, I like hearing that because this is a spot where I think I'm prepared to stand in front of the market. I was kind of with your initial read there. I like Bueno Silva in this spot. I think it's another recency bias spot where people are really down on her for almost no reason. Like you said, her level of competition has been really good. It's been Mayra Moroz and Manon Fior, who she's lost to. She's done really well against everybody else. She armbarred Jillian Robertson. She armbarred Mara Borella. And then, Wu Yanan, nothing really to write home about, but she's beating the girls that she's supposed to be beating. And the market is going to make this line flip here. I do like the aggression of Stephanie Egger. I do like what she's shown in her last couple fights. But it's all ground game. It's all hip toss, top control, and armbar. That's really been the way that she has dominated her opponents. And I'm sorry, I bet her heftily against Jessica Rose Clark, because if Clark isn't the one in the driver's seat for the wrestling, she doesn't have much for you. Now, the Shanna Young, I respect that win. I thought Shanna Young was another very underrated fighter here in the UFC, and she's come around. She proved she belongs here in her last fight with the finish of Gina Mazzani. I think she was fighting up a weight class that night as well. So there's a bit of a tug of war going on between these two and their records. But on the feet, I really feel like Bueno Silva is the far more polished striker. I think Shanna Young's a little uncomfortable when they're standing. So even though she'll have a 2-inch reach advantage, I'm not sure she's going to know what to do with it. When they clinch up, yeah, she might send Mayra Bueno Silva for a ride, but she's probably going to eat some clinch knees on the way to do it. And once they hit the mat, like you said, that's actually where Silva starts to show what she's really good at. She's able to scramble. She's able to roll. She attacks arm bars. She will do anything it takes to get back up to the feet. I actually think that Silva is in a really good spot to win this fight. I agree with the opening line, but because of all the steam rolling in here on Edgar, I'm going to sit tight because I think I'll get plus money on Silva by the end of the week.
I think you will, because I think at first glance, I don't know how you don't land on Bueno Silva at first glance. Mm-hmm. And it wasn't until I started watching the fights that I thought, boy, I don't know anymore. And at a pick'em, it's starting to get tricky, but you're right. If you could get plus money on either, it'd be easy to make a case. In fact, if this line moved 40 cents either way, I'd be happy with the dog on either side.
Yeah, and I think really that's kind of the key here, Matt. If you're getting plus 120 or better on either side of this fight, you're good. Like take the dog, no matter who that happens to be. I really think that if Egger cannot control the grappling situations, I think she will be outpaced on the feet. I think she will be outgunned on the feet. And then I'm not convinced that she can just control Silva on the mat for 15 minutes. So I think she would need some kind of a finish. And with what we've seen from Silva, I don't know that that's going to come easy. So don't get me wrong. Egger can win the fight. If you got in early, you beat the line move, you did your job. I'm going to buy low here on Egger, or not on Egger, sorry, on Silva. I think I'm going to wait for this line to flip. If I can get plus 110, plus 120, I'll jump in on the Silva side and hope she can keep this thing standing for the most part.
Yeah, the only thing that worries me about people that get so many armbar finishes is sometimes they're too comfortable on their back. And then if they don't get those arm bars, they spend too much time with somebody on top of them losing the round. That was my thought when I watched it. I'm like, boy, Bueno Silva's happy to be on her back. And she has some great armbar finishes. But sometimes they throw up those arm bars. Oh, you don't get it. Now you're on your back, but you're happy to be there because you could try for another one. And, oh, the round ended and you spent 3 minutes on your back and lost the round. And so I'm a little bit conflicted for that reason.
I
think Eggers is going to be hard to armbar here.
It's true. I think she is going to be hard to armbar, and that's what, like I said, I hope it stays standing. I think that Silva can beat her standing. I don't want it to go on the ground, and I definitely don't want it to stay there too long if it does. So it'll be a fun fight. I'm not going to have a heavy investment in it. We'll see where this line goes and how big that plus number gets, because if I can get a decent plus number, I will jump in. And yeah, Nigel saying I did my job already. Egger plus 120. There you go. Take the plus money, folks, and ride with it. Next fight on the card, we got another women's MMA matchup here. Cory McKenna taking on Miranda Granger. And this one is one that I cannot wait to talk to you about here, Matt. We've got the ever-dreaded returning mother situation here. And before anybody gets upset at me, I'm not trying to disparage women or anything like that. But what we have seen is when women step away from MMA to have a child, they struggle to return. Now, we don't know if it's the maternal instincts. We don't know that it takes a while to get the body back where it needs to be. All those things are factors that, I'm a man, I'm not going to comment on. We have no idea. But what we have seen is that first fight back doesn't generally go as planned, and the fighters don't quite show to the level that we've seen them before in the past. Cory McKenna 6-2. Miranda Granger 7-2. So very similarly experience-wise. Cory McKenna is all hype. Everybody loves this girl. Strong wrestling, training with Sarah McMahon. She dropped her last fight to Elise Reed as a -300 favorite. We sniped that dog last time out. That was fun. But realistically, she was in that fight and very well could have gotten the nod for it. She's young, she's green, but she has a good, well-rounded game. She plods forward, heavy on her feet, uses her boxing to close the distance, and she cuts off the cage really well. I noticed she does a good job of cornering her opponents. She's a little bit hittable, but man, is she tough. She's extremely durable. It doesn't matter. She'll take your punch to go ahead and close that different distance, walk through your shots, and land a couple of her own. Like I said, the big thing, the wrestling. She's got that big right hand, but she also has the takedowns. 1.33 takedowns per 15 minutes, 44% accuracy, and she decides where the fight takes place. 71% takedown defense rating herself, so more often than not, you're not getting her down. If it's going to the ground, she's on top. Miranda Granger, like I said, 1-2 in the UFC. She was actually favored over both Lemos and Yoder in her last couple fights after winning her debut against Hannah Goldie as an underdog. Let's just wrap our brains around that for a second. She was an underdog to Hannah Goldie and then somehow managed to be the favorite over Amanda Lemos. So odds makers have no idea what to do with Miranda Granger, quite obviously. 2-year layoff for the child, but honestly, her game is solid. She's aggressive on the feet. She keeps a high pace. She's good in scrambles. The ground and pound is kind of where she does her best work. She does get taken down, and I noticed against Ashley Yoder in round 2, she had no way to get back to her feet. She's good in the initial scramble, but once you secure that takedown, that second and third effort to get back up to the feet, she abandons that and plays from her guard. She will have a ridiculous 10-inch reach advantage here in this spot, so she's going to have that for an edge, but she's only got 40% takedown defense, Matt. This is a really long-winded way of saying that, honestly, I think the UFC has set this win up for Cory McKenna. I think Miranda Granger could pose some problems. She's tough. She's scrappy. I'm excited for her to be back, but at the end of the day, with that poor takedown defense rating and her willingness to stay on her back, coupled with the long layoff, the potential ring rust, I think Cory can just wrestle this girl for 15 minutes and really not have much of a problem. What about you?
I think McKenna is more hype than substance right now. And I don't mean to bash on her, but, that loss to Elise Reed and again, 5'3", she's giving up 4 inches of height in this. If this fight didn't involve the 2+ year layoff due to the childbirth and motherhood, I would probably be all over the other side because I get the much bigger fighter in Danger Granger. And her 2 losses to Amanda Lemos and Ashley Yoder are both way above the level of McKenna. You're talking about women that are much more proven, much more established, and much more understandable with the losses. But I worry about the 2 years off at this point, and it's probably going to keep me off this fight, but I can't lay money with her. I just think at the end of the day, if her wrestling doesn't get going or she fatigues from the wrestling, it's hard to be that short. I feel like it'd be that compact and have such a, your game is so predicated on wrestling. It's just tricky for me. So I'm probably going to stay away for this one.
I couldn't agree more, Matt. This is one of those classic, I'm picking the favorite and I'm not betting it type of spot. Yeah. Like I said, it really seems like it's set up for Cory McKenna to win this thing, but it's so funny. You guys know I love you here in the chat, but I mean, guys like Mr. Savage here saying, gonna have a horrible week again if you bet McKenna. Guys, I bet Reed last time out. Like MMA Prophet saying, please don't do it. She couldn't even take down Reed. Everybody underestimated Reed, guys. Like, I get that McKenna is overhyped. I get that she is, like Matt said, a little bit more hyped than substance. But the fact is, she's got that base. She's at a good camp. She's young. I expect her to make improvements, and the UFC is trying to push her. So could Miranda Granger come out and win this fight? Yes, she could. I expect Cory McKenna to have the tools to go ahead and get it done. And I know a lot of people are burned from the Elise Reed fight, but everybody underestimated Elise Reed. That's what happened last time out. I think she can win this one. I honestly think she can win it relatively comfortably. So my pick is going to be Cory McKenna by decision. If I was going to bet it, that would be the prop that I would bet, because you'll probably get even money, drop the, minus 230, minus 225 favorite down to an even money type of spot. Probably not going to bet it at all, but I'm going to go ahead and side with the favorite on this one.
Yeah, there's no way I would take the favorite. I don't know. I think that size difference is going to be real in the octagon. When you see those two together, you're not going to believe they fight in the same weight class.
Absolutely. But that goes two ways, Matt. It's so weird because you see times where the height and the reach ends up being a detriment, where you can get inside the reach, or especially if you can get them to the ground, they end up just not being able to do much with it. If she can keep the reach, if she can keep the range, then she will be a problem. Nice, long, quick jab. She might be able to keep Cory McKenna on the outside of it. I think Cory McKenna has the tools to get inside, but again, I'm not paying to find out. We'll see what happens on this one. I'm not touching it.
Yeah, me neither. And I just don't know that Granger's timing is going to be there. And if it's not, to your point, the height and reach, they become completely irrelevant.
I will say that I read something from the Danger camp is that she actually had an offer to come back for a fight a little bit sooner, and she turned it down because she wasn't ready yet. She turned it down because she needed more time to recover, to get her body where it needs to be. Those are the kinds of things that I would like to kind of lean on if you were going to take a stab at the underdog here. But it's still not quite enough for me to actually pull the trigger, because we all know camps and coaches lie. They say things. I'm glad she took some extra time. I think that will be a benefit for her. Is it enough of a benefit for her to win on Saturday? I'm not so sure. We'll find out. All right, everybody. Moving right along. Next fight up, we got Jason Witt taking on Josh Quinlan. Oh, boy. Everybody brace yourselves because, okay, I'm going to start with the breakdown as usual, okay? So Josh Quinlan is 5-0, undefeated, coming off the Contender Series, starching people. This guy's hands are nasty. He is crazy explosive. Won on Dana White's Contender Series, first round knockout. That got overturned to a no contest, however, because he immediately popped for an anabolic steroid and was sent to the sidelines for 9 months. Did some searching, comes out of Wanderley's fight team. Big surprise the guy popped for steroids when Wanderlei Silva is your head coach and doctor. He has a 2-inch reach advantage here in this spot. 100% takedown defense. Obviously, that's coming off of that one Contender Series fight and one opportunity that his opponent had to go ahead and try to take him down. So don't read too much into the 100% takedown defense, but he does have good hips. We saw on the regional scene, he's pretty solid when it comes to sprawling and brawling. So he does have some skill there. Jason Witt, 19-8. Strong wrestling. He's a physical dude. He's a little tank. He kind of tends to gas out when the fight gets a little bit deep, but he does have a tight squeeze on him. Problem is he's got no chin. Jason Witt could get knocked out by a cold shower. It really just is a touch him once kind of situation. He was mauling Phil Rowe until Rowe got up in that second round and bopped him the single time, and that was all she wrote. He averages 6.89 takedowns per 15 minutes with a 48% accuracy. So one of these just chain mauling wrestlers, mostly because he has to. He has a 100% takedown defense. So obviously, again, it's another guy that he's the one doing the taking down. People are not taking him down. And this is the Dana White Contender Series fade spot, folks. I hate it. I absolutely hate it. So when I did the study, when I watched the tape, looking at these guys, I went, Josh Quinlan is going to absolutely punch Jason Witt out. He's just going to need one good shot, and this fight is over. So rest assured, I am with you when I'm picking Josh Quinlan to win this fight. However, a couple weeks back, I told you guys the Dana White Contender Series fade is a profitable angle, and it is working since the inception of Dana White's Contender Series. I went into heavy detail last week explaining that angle. So if you don't know what the fade angle is, watch at the 15-minute mark of UFC 277's breakdown. I talk about it for the Nick Negamarianu spot. I explain the whole thing there. I'm not going to repeat it here today. Go check that video out. It lines up on this spot. Jason Witt is the UFC fighter with UFC caliber experience, and he is the underdog. I swore when I went 1-1 the wrong way, it was like a month or two ago. There were two spots on the card with the Dana White Contender Series fade. I chose to play one of them, and I chose to pass on the other one because I had picked the favorite in that one. They did, in fact, go 1-1, so the angle was profitable that night, but I picked the wrong one to bet on. It was the bigger favorite, the bigger underdog that actually came through on the fade angle, the one that nobody saw coming. So I swore I was blindly betting this angle, regardless of my personal beliefs, from that point forward. Guys, I have a 1-unit bet on Jason Witt at plus 175, and I absolutely hate it. I think Josh Quinlan probably sprawls and brawls and knocks his ass out in the early second round. There's questions about how much that, the steroids were an impact on him. There's questions to, can he make the transition to the UFC level? How good were his previous opponents? He's only 5-0, so don't get me wrong. Maybe the angle pays on Saturday. I am not telling anybody to tail this angle. I'm just telling you I swore I was going to do it blindly, so that's what I'm doing. I've got a bet on Jason Witt. It's only 1 unit because I'm terrified to put any more hard-earned money on it than that. Matt, that's the crap situation I'm in for Saturday. How do you see this fight playing out?
Yeah, and I don't like Jason Witt either because I feel like he stole Chase Sherman's nickname. The original Vanilla Gorilla, Jason Witt, came along and stole it. If you remember, before Chase got cut the first time, he was in the UFC before Witt was. With the nickname Vanilla Gorilla, Jason Witt came in and stole it. I'm not too keen on stealing other people's nicknames.
To be fair, we didn't think Chase Sherman was going to be around that much longer.
True. All right, fair enough. Good point. Hey, he's coming off a win here. What are you talking about, Clint?
Hey, he proved he got us all. He got us all. He looked good.
But this one's tricky. I mean, really, Quinlan should be 6-0, right? Because that no contest on DWCS where he knocked the guy out in 45 seconds became a no contest due to the steroid thing. So he's had 6 fights. He's had 6 wins. He's had 6 finishes. And boy, he looks the part. And it does feel like they're serving Witt up a bit. Just, they don't want this will be his 4th knockout loss. And I could certainly see him being cut after this fight because he's not the most exciting guy in the world to watch anyway. And you get knocked out 4 times. That's probably one of those situations where maybe he does get cut. But I do like James Krause in the corner and the experience that he brings and the ability. I just think some of the advice he gives his fighters and the preparation they do is actually pretty good. I think Krause has turned into a really good trainer, really good corner man. And I don't go against the Dana White Contender Series fade. I either jump on the fade or I don't bet it. So for me, it's dog or nothing here. Unfortunately, although Jason Witt is a thief and stole the Vanilla Gorilla moniker.
We will definitely hold that one against him. So just for anybody's knowledge, if you guys are wondering, I am updating the record of the fade as we go just to make sure we stay up to date, and I'll be tweeting it and posting it on Instagram, all that good stuff. Currently, 31 wins, 47 losses, 1 push, plus 11.37 units. That's a 14.39% return on investment using the Dana White Contender Series fade. So yeah, and I did the math, guys. I pulled out all the big underdogs from that, the ones where it was guys where everybody was convinced, this guy's a future UFC champion, and those are actually the money makers. The ones that nobody sees coming are the ones that are pulling off the upsets because they're overinflated because everybody's hyped on them. Those actually make the fade angle far more profitable. If you took out all the big favorites and big underdogs, the fade angle is still profitable, but it's only up like 3 units instead of being up like 11 units. So yeah, just blindly playing the Dana White Contender Series fade angle until a point that it's proven to be unprofitable, because to this point, it's worked out pretty well.
Look, and if you want a reason to bet Jason Witt, who's 2-3 in the UFC here, you already talked about all 3 of his losses by knockout, go watch the Bryan Bam Bam Barberena fight. Yeah. I mean, he only has 2 wins, and one of them is against Bam Bam. And he looked good in that fight. And Bam Bam, obviously, he's not a huge puncher. He's more of a volume striker than he is one-shot power. He hit him with some solid stuff, and Witt stayed in there. So, you know, at the end of the day, I think it's got to be dog or pass here.
We'll see what happens. Yeah, guys, coming off steroids, big questions, only 5 fights. There's a lot of holes that we could poke in this one. So as terrifying as it is, like I don't mind it, but I still am, you know, I still fully expect Quinlan to eventually touch the chin of Witt, and we'll see what happens. But shout out to James Krause. He retired from MMA officially, going full-time with the coaching stuff. So good for him. He's doing some work there with a young crop of fighters, and awesome for him to have his first champion. Shout out Brandon Moreno for getting the belt back, baby. That was definitely fun to watch him go ahead and get that win. So good stuff coming from the Glory MMA camp with a actual champion with a belt working with all these guys. Hopefully it means they're all going to head up and head the right direction moving forward here. Next fight up, everybody. We have got Takashi Sato taking on Bryan Battle. This is your classic tough champion versus first step in the UFC fight, right? Bryan Battle actually dropping a weight class for this one, making his debut down a class, which again, just classic contender, or not contender series, Ultimate Fighter. Classic Ultimate Fighter. We see those guys compete light because they got to make weight so many times in a row on the show. And then when they get to the UFC, they transition to actually being at the real weight class that they should compete at. So he's making the drop. This one's interesting though, Matt. So jumping over and taking a look at the line here at Superbook Sports, we have got Bryan Battle sitting as a pretty solid favorite here in this spot. For some reason, it looks like -220, +190 on Takashi Sato. And I love Takashi, guys. He is one of these dudes that brings infectious energy. He smiles all the time. He's always laughing and doing stuff in his interviews. Like, he's a good dude. Takashi Sato and I could hang out and be buds. I swear it. But he's so KO reliant. He's a guy that has big, solid power, heavy hands, but he's 2-3 in the UFC. His only wins are over Ben Saunders, who is ready to hang it up, and Witt. We just talked about Witt. He's light on his feet. He's got that sideways karate stance, big explosive entries on his power shots. His takedown defense and submission defense really has been the issue. He hasn't seemed to be able to put it all together and turn that corner. If you're not going to kickbox with him and you're not maybe a little on the chinny side, he's probably not going to get you out of there. Now, Bryan Battle, 7-1, making his 170 debut. This guy's got nice footwork. I bet him against Tresean Gore when they had that battle of, you know, who should have really won the Ultimate Fighter season. He did pretty well in that fight, but that fight could have also been stopped because of the swelling on his face. He's a bit hittable. He fights long. He plays the outside, but he gets into those trading situations, and he is there to be touched sometimes. He has a 40% striking defense so far in the UFC, and that's terrifying when you're going against a power puncher like Takashi Sato. He will have a 4-inch reach advantage here. Guys, I lean to Bryan Battle. I'm going to pick Bryan Battle to get the win, but it will not shock me whatsoever if Takashi Sato bops him and ends this thing with one big power shot because he overextended on a single punch or something like that. Takashi Sato KO or bust, but I think he's live to land the KO here. I think Bryan Battle's going to get the win. I'm not laying -220 to find out. How about you, Matt?
Yeah, I actually like Battle by decision a little bit here. It feels like one of those fights that's probably going to go the distance if Battle can avoid the knockout. Mm-hmm. And the one thing we have seen is everybody says that, you know, Soto's a really terrible grappler and he just got outsmoked grappling guys. He was in there with some tough grapplers. Gunnar Nelson. I mean, Gunnar Nelson is tough. Bilal Muhammad. I mean, so to Sato's credit, it wasn't like he lost to some mid-card level grapplers in the UFC. He lost to two of the best grapplers in those divisions in Belal Muhammad and Gunnar Nelson. So I think you can kind of give him a pass. And I don't think he's like suddenly the worst grappler there was at 170 or whatever. You know, he fought really like super elite submission. You know, Belal Muhammad, we saw what he just did to like really top level guys with his grappling and shutting people down. And Gunnar Nelson, when they fought, was still one of the best submission guys at 70. So you got out grappled by superior level grapplers. Mm-hmm. And when you fought lower level guys, you knocked them out. So I think this fight's actually closer than the spread says. I also think Bryan Battle's really talented and really athletic. And that athleticism here, especially if he can just keep the wrestling going, and he's not likely to have a cardio dump as much as some people because he's in such amazing shape. I mean, I saw him leading up to this fight, some of the training work he's been doing. I was actually talking to Greg from B2 Promotions, who works with Bryan Battle, worked with him on the regional scene a little bit. And he's like, man, this guy is a cardio machine, one of the best athletes that Greg at B2 Promotions has seen. So for that reason, I think Battle's going to be too much volume, too much wrestling, too much athleticism. But I do think that Sato's getting this terrible rep for going against a couple of the best grapplers in the division. It doesn't mean he's a terrible grappler. It just means that he's not great, and he went against some of the best guys. I actually think this one goes over the total. I think it has decision written all over it. For that reason, I kind of like it.
I don't mind that look whatsoever, Matt. I think that's a solid way to look at it. If Bryan Battle can just avoid the bomb, drag this thing late, regardless of if it's close or not, over 2.5, minus 165, not a bad way to look at it. There's always alternatives. You don't have to necessarily pick a side. We can play a total. Shout out to Daniel here in the chat saying, are you going to do the fade on Joe Pyfer versus Allen? Dear God, Daniel, I don't want to. Let me tell you, Joe Pyfer is not a guy I want to stand in front of. But if Allen is a big underdog on the UFC debut, that is the angle, and I will play it. So, that's how it's gonna go. And Daniel, posting my results here from UFC 277 in the chat. Thank you for that. I've actually already gone over it, so the people are more than aware of what I bet on and how the night went for me. So I'm not sure if you're trying to out me in front of everybody or not, but everybody knows. Nobody cares. All right, everybody. Moving right along. We've got our next fight here. Terrance McKinney taking on Erick Gonzalez. And this is maybe my favorite name in the UFC. He's the Ghost Pepper, baby. I love that fight name for some reason. I don't know why. It's super fun. Can't help myself. Oh, boy, though. Terrance McKinney is already just... I'm going to start with the line because, oof, this guy is getting Hamzat level lines here. Minus 900 on Superbook Sports. Erick Gonzalez is plus 600 as an underdog right now. It's absolutely nuts. And but I get it, right? Like, the kid is massively athletic. He's very popular. He hits hard. He's got an underrated wrestling and submission game. The problem is he's shown himself to be just a little bit chinny. I mean, in his 12-4 record, he's got 3 knockout losses, 1 submission loss. He still has never been finished. Not never been finished. Sorry, he's still never been to the judges' scorecards. He's been to round 2 twice. He's been to round 3 once. The guy's got a 100% finish rate, kill or be killed. And Erick Gonzalez, 14-6. This guy likes to trade. He's a take a shot to give a shot type of fighter himself. He gets into a dogfight, and he fought guys on the regional scene like Humberto Bandone, Rafa Garcia. Like, he's got some decent names on his record. I actually was looking forward to Erick Gonzalez coming back. Matt, I really wanted to try to back him. I wanted to find a spot to bet on this guy because if you give him the right matchup, I actually think he can win a couple fights in the UFC. But after seeing what happened to him against Jim Miller, they said, oh, baby, let's throw Terrance McKinney in there and try to get another highlight reel on this kid's record. Gonzalez has 2 losses by sub, 1 by knockout. The other 3 have been by decision. So he's actually been pretty durable up until he made the leap up to the UFC, with Jim Miller being the first guy to ever knock him out. Erick Gonzalez will have a 2-inch reach advantage, it looks like, here in this spot over Terrance McKinney. And I mean, Matt, this is the most obvious pick the favorite and pass type of spot I've ever seen. Like, I want to bet violence here. I don't want to lay 10-1 on Terrance McKinney because I know he should win this fight. I know he should knock this guy out. He should have a speed advantage. He's explosive. If it gets to the ground, he's probably got a wrestling advantage. He's got the submission advantage, and we've seen this guy get tapped twice before. The cards are all there. Terrance McKinney should be able to win this fight however he wants. But the fact that he slows down the second he gets out of round one, he goes for broke in the first 5 minutes and then gets killed if it gets outside of round two more often than not. I can't trust him at 9-1. I'd be careful doing parlays out there with this 9-1 favorite, guys, because even though, yes, he should win, and I agree with you, 9-1 doesn't add a whole lot of juice to your parlay in the end. And he's got the type of chin that every once in a while can get caught by somebody and exposed. So I'm not going to bet the dog, Matt, but I'm also not laying it with the favorite. I would probably bet violence. Maybe you take the inside the distance prop on McKinney if it's not too awful. Maybe find a way to play the under 1.5, something like that. The pick is McKinney, but I'm going to have a hard time finding a way to actually bet it.
Yeah, and when's the last time you saw a 1-10 favorite coming off a loss? Really rare, right? To see a favorite that big that is actually coming off a loss. And not just the loss, but to your point, getting finished by Drew Dober. And now you're a 1-10 favorite. I think that the chin on Gonzalez here is being a little bit kind of brought to the attention because Jim Miller, knocked him out. But to your point, this guy had never been knocked out previously. Everybody gets hit on the button sometimes. It's MMA. But he has plenty of fights. He's never knocked out before that. And he was in some slugfest. This guy only fights one way. The problem here is he's not very athletic, which makes me feel like he's going to be a step slow and a step behind for most of the fight. So really his only way to win is for McKinney to empty the gas tank and then to land those big shots. So I'm probably just going to pass.
Yeah, I completely agree, Matt. The athleticism difference is going to be such a big deal. And honestly, what I might look at, guys, is going back to the well on McKinney by sub. I want to see what that number looks like when it comes out because they just forget how good this guy is on the mat when he decides to wrestle. He is going up against Erick Gonzalez, who we just saw get KO'd, but like Matt said, has been reasonably durable before that fight. If McKinney decides not to swing and bang with this kind of guy, if he hits him once or twice and he doesn't go away immediately, we might see some grappling. We might see a ground battle. And if that's the case, I fully trust Terrance McKinney to go ahead and sink in another choke. So if we get like just a juicy plus number on McKinney by sub, that may be the way I end up going on it.
I don't blame you. I like that.
Yeah, we'll see what those numbers look like when we get props out here on this one. All right, guys, real quickly, we are going to take a short break. We've got 243 live viewers, so thank you all so much for spending time with us here this evening. I have a cool new opportunity that I want to share with you guys. We're going to talk about it a little bit more at the end of the show. There's a company called Spectation Sports that's doing a whole lot of cool stuff, helping regional scene MMA. They're really trying to bolster it up, bring gambling into the scene so that you can bet on regional MMA fights. It's really cool what they're doing, and they're asking me to get involved with them. So that's something I'm going to be doing going forward. And again, like I said, we'll come back to it at the end of the show. I'll tell you a little bit more about it, but we're going to hear a quick word from our sponsor, and then we will get into the second half of the card. All right, welcome back to the show, everybody, at the Die Hard MMA podcast brought to you by Pub Sports Radio. We be pubbing. I'm joined by Matt Holt, president of U.S. Integrity. And the next fight we are going to talk to you about is my boy, Sam Alvey, Smiling Sam, makes his return to the octagon, taking on Michał Lord Oleksiejczuk. And I don't care if I'm saying his name wrong, guys, because every time I see Oleksiejczuk's name, all I can think of is dodgeball, my fitness consigliere, Michał. So I have to say it that way. It gives me a giggle every single time. Guys, it's Sam Alvey. It's Sam Alvey Fight Week. I need cigars. Matt, have you seen the meme of Sam Alvey with the cigar running around on Twitter? Oh, it's so good. There's this handle that does UFC roster watch. So literally every time anybody gets added or cut from the UFC, they tweet out an update on it. And whenever the UFC cleans house and they cut a bunch of people, somebody just replies with this amazing image of Sam Alvey with the biggest shit-eating grin on his face and a gigantic cigar in his mouth because he's still on the roster when these people got cut. It's like the best running joke. I honestly pray Sam wins this weekend just so I can keep seeing that meme. Oleksiejczuk, guys, is 16-5. He is making his 185-pound debut. We have talked about this kid so many times, and you know what? Every time I'm on this show, I talk about how he's too small for 205. I talk about how he's a little bit short. His arms are a little too short. He doesn't quite have the power he needs. Like, he's just not quite suited for 205 pounds. He's finally moving to 185. Let's see how he looks. I'm very excited. He's got slick boxing. He's got fast hands. He keeps a high, aggressive pace, but we have seen him slow down. We've seen him start to gas. And then, of course, we've seen him hurt by some of the bigger punchers. Now, at 185, that may not be such a big problem. We will find out. Sam Alvey, 33-17-1. I hate that one. Never should have been a draw. Sam Alvey won that fight. Don't at me. This is his last chance, folks. He is finally getting a full training camp. You know, all these other fights that he's been involved in, they've been short notice opportunities. Shout out, there's my boy Boston Nick in the house. What's up, buddy? These have all been short notice opportunities, and he has jumped on the chance to get in there and fight. He's been the definition of a company man for the UFC. So I'm glad that they've given him the opportunity to say, you know what? I'm not going to do anything weird, nor short notices, no replacements. Give me a full camp. Let me try to actually win this fight. He's got big power. He likes to skirt the outside of the cage, keep it moving, tries to walk his opponents into big power shots. He's always looking for that one fight ending bomb. And I think his style has not evolved with MMA. I don't think MMA, you can't survive with that kind of a style anymore. The Tyrone Woodley put my back against the cage and bomb on him. It just doesn't work. These kids are too savvy. The game plans are too good. You're not going to catch somebody walking into that big punch unless they're one of these 3-1 first fight in the UFC type of debutantes. Anybody with the experience is not going to fall for that trap. I have to pick Oleksiejczuk. It pains my soul, guys. I mean, you know, I've all like donated to my bookies hedge fund trying to bet Sam Alvey as an underdog. It should have worked out a couple times, but obviously there have been some times that it didn't work out, even close to being a casher. He's plus 450 against Oleksiejczuk, who's minus 600, and I want to, just because I'm like wired to bet Sam Alvey at this point, but I can't do it. I mean, I could see him weathering the early storm from Oleksiejczuk. I could see him catching him with something late when he finally slows down and Alvey can touch him. But Matt, these last couple fights for Alvey have been so bad. He's looked slower. His durability looks like it's gone a little bit. He gave up that weird choke after getting rocked, which is something we don't normally see. It just almost feels like he's kind of fallen apart. So I can't put my money on Sam Alvey, as much as plus 450 makes me a little excited to go ahead and jump out. And yeah, like Andy's saying, Alvey will be in the BKFC by next Monday. That's kind of what it feels like. But I'm also not going to trust Oleksiejczuk at minus 600. I think that's a stupid lineup for a guy that we've seen slow down, gas out, and who's making a cut to a new division for the first time. This is a massive stay away from me, Matt. What are you doing here?
First of all, it's sort of a unique position in UFC betting. Very, very rarely do we ever get the opportunity to diagnose a fighter who has gone 8 straight fights without a win. I mean, he's lost 7 of his last 8, and the non-win was a draw I mean, that is unbelievable. Who the heck loses 8 straight, basically, or 7 out of 8 with the draw and keeps their UFC contract? That just shows you how popular Sam Alvey is. And I think that's why people continue to bet him as an underdog. The one thing to keep in mind, though, is 3 of Alvey's last fights are either a split decision loss or a draw. So this isn't a guy who's suddenly getting blasted in fights all the time and isn't in him and should probably retire. The reason the UFC's kept him around is 3 of his last fights were really close. One of them's a draw. He probably should have won. 2 of the other 4 were split decision losses. So he's been right there in fights. There is no possible way right now on a Monday I would lay minus 600 on Oleksiejczuk without seeing what he looks like on the scales. I'm always nervous of guys' first fight changing divisions. So the first time that they changed, oh, nice. Love that.
There's our guy right there.
Yeah, I see it. I do love that. I think that first fight changing weight classes can be a little tricky, and you never know what you're going to get. I like to see how they look on the scale. How do they look fight week? How is the cut going? Because it's different for different people. Those things affect people drastically different. And we've seen some people lose the fight on the scale before they ever step in the octagon. You could tell, wow, if they don't get it done in 3 minutes, they're going to have nothing left in the tank, almost passing out on the scale. So I would definitely want to see that first. But even if everything looks great on the scale, the fact that Sam Alvey has been so competitive in 60% of his last 5 fights is going to mean I am definitely staying away.
Yeah, it's guys, it's dog or pass. That's what this fight is for me. There's no way in hell I'm laying that kind of a price tag on Oleksiejczuk. I don't know that he is going to do something like Brandon Allen is going to do, split decision against Wellington Turman. Turman had like 4 points deducted that night, though. Split decision with Ryan Spann, which I don't know that he should have necessarily lost. And then same thing with the draw against Da Un Jung. I thought that he won that fight very clearly. So a couple of spots, those are the justifications I've made to get on Sam Alvey the last couple of times, Matt. And honestly, I think I'm just at that point where I don't have the stomach for it. Y'all pray for me, because if Oleksiejczuk looks like shit come Friday, if he is dragging on those scales, I'm going to end up doing it.
I'm going to be on it with you.
I pray Oleksiejczuk comes in looking clean on Friday so I don't have to bear the ridicule of betting Sam Alvey yet again. If Oleksiejczuk looks bad on the weight cut, I will bet Sam Alvey without.
Look, I think that Alvey was 20 seconds away from knocking out Ryan Spann. He was rocking him late in that fight. 20 more seconds and Spann was done. But you're right. At this point, yeah, me too. If Oleksiejczuk looks crappy on the scale, I am definitely going to have to take the plus 400 or plus 450. I'm going to hate doing it, but I will. I know I'll do it.
It is going to come down to Friday. Absolutely. I'm not getting involved now, but God, if Chuck's rough, or if we're watching the fight and Oleksiejczuk is slowing down in round 2, like that's where you may see a little something end up on there. Shout out real quick, my boys over at Chronic Combat Conversations. Make sure you guys go support these guys and check them out. They're part of the new wave, the new generation of podcasters and breakdown bettors for MMA. And they're just awesome. I've been on their show a couple of different times. They've been gracious enough to have me come on over, and they're good guys. Make sure you support them. All right, everybody, next fight up, we have got Ariane Lipski taking on Priscila Cachoeira. They're putting my ladies against each other, Matt. They always got to do this to me when I have these undervalued, underappreciated gem fighters, and I want to just go to battle with them and take advantage of people second guessing them and questioning them. They always match them up with each other, and then I'm forced to pick a damn side. So not happy about this particular matchup here, Matt. Ariane Lipski is 14-7. Priscila Cachoeira, or Catch a Beating, as some of you may know her, is 11-4. The Queen of Violence versus the Zombie Girl. Lipski's got really solid Muay Thai. She knows how to use that length. She strikes long. She's got solid power for this weight class. The problem is she's really struggled with the ground game historically, but she moved out to American Top Team. Her last fight, that was something that everybody was talking about. And I thought, Top Team is going to be great for Lipski. She needed to go to a big camp. She needed to get around elite level trainers and bodies. However, I don't think that first camp was enough time for her to really make any type or adjust. But now, if she's been able to hang out at that camp for 6 or 9 months, now you see what ATT can do for someone like Lipski. She manages her range very well. Her counter strikes are on point. She's got an aggressive guard when she gets taken down. She actually has a pretty solid submission game if she gets dominant position. But like I said, she tends to get overwhelmed by better wrestlers, better grapplers, and that's where her losses have come from. She's lost by knockout 3 times. However, 2 of those have been ground and pound situations. She has a 55% takedown defense, but the zombie girl isn't going for no takedowns, Matt. Priscila Cachoeira is looking to do one thing, and that is paint her hair blue, walk forward, and punch you in the mouth. I guess that's 2 things or 3 things, but whatever. Who's counting? She is a pressure fighter, and she is durable as all get out. Stays in your face, willing to trade. She stole that fight from Ji-Yoon Kim, busting her up with elbows late in that 3rd round. Like, she will fight for your money. If there is ever a dog in the women's MMA division, besides the champ, Juliana Pena herself, that you want to get behind because you know she's going to fight for every penny that you put on her, it's Priscila Cachoeira. Her 2 losses, though, have been by submission to superior grapplers. We've got Lipski as a -170 favorite. Priscila Cachoeira is a +150 underdog. And honestly, Matt, I can see arguments for both sides on this fight. Personally, I think that Priscila Cachoeira is a much higher level prospect. I think she's got a higher ceiling. She's younger. She's at a better camp. I expect her to do better long term. But in this particular fight, Priscila Cachoeira is going to come to fight. She's going to put up a battle. I still lean to Ariane Lipski winning this fight, but I don't know that I like the price tag of -170 on her. What about you?
I like Zombie Girl at that price. I thought this price should be more around 135, and the fact that it's 175, even some 180s out there, I thought that's a little bit too wide a margin here. We have one fighter in Zombie Girl who's taller. She's going to be 1.5 inches height. She's going to have a little reach advantage. She has the power advantage. On the other side, we have a fighter who hasn't fought in about a year, so she's not exactly coming in fresh. I just think that at the end of the day, this one's probably going to stand up for more often than it's on the ground. And if this fight does stay standing, you have to like Zombie Girl's chances. And so I like taking the +150 range in this with the underdog Zombie Girl here.
Okay. Hey, like I said, Matt, I don't hate it, and I can see arguments for both sides. I am not laying the price with Ariane Lipski. I do think that she ends up winning the fight. I think that her counter shots, I think that her footwork, the reach, those are all things that Ji-Yoon Kim used really well against Priscila Cachoeira and was this close to getting that win. The difference, I think, is that Lipski, they call her the Queen of Violence for a reason. She will come into fight, whereas Ji-Yoon Kim was kind of running away there in that 3rd round. Lipski will bite down and throw back. So I don't know that Priscila Cachoeira can have the same result against someone like Lipski. And I know I talked about this a couple fights ago with Terrance McKinney, but guys, I think the Lipski sub prop is a little bit live here in this spot. I don't know. It's all game plan dependent, obviously. We see Lipski want to strike more than anything. But when she gets into those scrambles, we have seen her go for submissions. She will attack the legs. Once she gets on top, she is nasty as far as finishing. If Priscila Cachoeira and her end up in some kind of a ground scramble or transition, or maybe even the work at ATT is something that is paying off for her if she's working on her wrestling, I could see that being something that's live here. Just a thought, another one of those blind darts. I don't know that I'm going to bet it. Let's look at the number. I don't mind violence here, though, Matt. This is one where I could see both these ladies throwing down for 15 minutes until somebody falls. I could see a ground and pound type of victory. I could see a submission happening. I could see a referee TKO, a cut stoppage. I mean, Ariane Lipski, I wouldn't be shocked if she got her her genealogy back and Tony Ferguson is like her uncle in there somewhere or something. The way she uses her elbows and dices people up and cuts people, I could see the stoppage taking place. So I also don't mind violence on this fight.
Yeah, that's an interesting angle because you can get around +200. The totals I saw so far were 2.5 over -240 in that range. So if you get plus 200 coming back on the under, I don't hate it. They are going to throw down.
And Lipski's got several round 1 finishes.
Yeah.
She's been taken out of there in round 2. We know Priscila Cachoeira, she hits hard enough to put people away. If there was a violence MMA spot for the ladies to turn that, standard of the over chalk on its head, this would probably be the one.
Yeah, I actually agree. 2 of the last 3 wins for Zombie Girl are by knockout.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, she's been getting it done.
That might be the play, Matt. We're getting 2-1.
And was it Shayna Dobson?
Jana Dobson was the uppercut. That was the uppercut from hell. That was fun to watch. And then, Gina Mazzani was the one where she essentially gassed her out and then finished her deep in the fight when she started slowing down.
Look, she comes on every fight late.
She does.
At the end of this fight, I believe Zombie Girl will be the one putting the pressure on, and that's how she won her last fight by decision. She lost that first round easy, started turning the tide, and then just came on late in that fight. I like the fact that in a slugfest, I have the taller girl, the bigger girl, the more powerful girl, and I expect her to be coming on late, and you get plus money. Sounds like a shot worth taking.
Absolutely. I don't mind that. That one might make the card, Matt. Real quick, Daniel in the chat, want to let you know, gave you a little timeout, man. You're timed out for 5 minutes here. There's 2 things that I do not allow in my chat. One of them is hate speech of any kind, racism, sexism, whatever have you. None of that. Number 2 is spam. You can say whatever you want. You can say how much you hate my face, talk about how ugly I am, post my record. I am the most open, honest, transparent sports bettor you will ever see. I don't care. Go right ahead. And sticks and stones, love. I don't care what you say about my face. Happily married, got a good wife. I'm all set over here. So you're not going to get me. But if you spam in my chat, you will be blocked. So here's your last warning. There's your timeout. If you want to come back and play nice, we're talking about the best sport in the world. You're welcome to hang with us, chat, and have a good time. If you keep spamming, you're getting the block. That's the end of it. All right, everybody. Moving right along. Augusto Sakai taking on Sergey Spivak, the polar bear. This is a fun striker versus grappler matchup here, Matt. Augusto Sakai, super tall, super long, came over from the PFL. But you know what? He has run on a little bit of tough times here on this recent stretch he's had in the UFC. Dropped his last fights, all 3 losses by knockout. However, those have been to Jairzinho Rozenstruik, Alistair Overeem, and then the death punch from Tai Tuivasa in round 2 in his last fight. He hasn't fought since then. That was back in 2021, so he's taken a bit of time off. His last win was a split decision over Blagoy, who, even though I respect Blagoy's skill set, he's a bit older. I think he's been let go from the organization at this point. It doesn't look good for Augusto Sakai's last 4 or 5 fights, and we had real high hopes for him when he came over to the UFC. He does have good footwork. He's athletic and light on his feet for a heavyweight. This guy is close and competitive in striking matches, but he kind of got a little exposed by Alistair Overeem. In his main event 5-round fight, he got taken down in rounds 3, 4, and 5 and just didn't have an answer. Could not get back up. He's got a 68% takedown defense so far, though. So, you know what? He hasn't had many people really trying to take him down. So I'm not sure what to make of that 68% takedown defense, because it seems like it's a path to victory, but it's also front-loaded heavy on that Alistair Overeem fight because not too many other people have gotten him to the mat. Sergey Spivak, 14-3. He is a mauling grappler. This guy's coming off that round 1 TKO over Greg Hardy. Everybody loves him for that. He really struggles with fast twitch muscle guys. These big explosive heavyweights that can swing super hard. Tom Aspinall, Walt Harris. These are the guys that catch Sergey Spivak in these striking positions. He's got a tight positional top game. He refuses to let you move. He is smothering when he gets you to the mat, and he has nasty ground and pound. He's also got a tight squeeze on him. This guy is no stranger to getting some submission wins. And Sergey Spivak will have a 1-inch reach advantage here in this fight. 3.29 takedowns per 15 minutes, 60% accuracy. You love to see that. Anytime they get up and over that 50% accuracy mark, that is spot on wrestling for the UFC. 70% takedown defense. Not many people are getting him down when he doesn't want it to head that way. I agree with Sergey Spivak being the favorite in this spot. I really do. He's a minus 210 favorite, plus 180 the comeback on Augusto Sakai. But I also feel like this might be a bit of a recency thing where Augusto Sakai is maybe a little bit better than people are giving him credit for. When he fought Alistair Overeem, those takedowns came late. Alistair was having trouble with him in rounds 1 and 2. It wasn't until the end of 3, then 4, then 5 that he started to get taken down and mauled on. I don't know if he's going to be easy to take down in round 1. I don't know if he's going to be easy to take down in round 2. And even though he's not the hardest puncher in the world, he's more of a volume guy. He still can add up that volume. He's still a slick striker. He's better on the feet than Sergey Spivak is. And he's going to make Sergey Spivak chase him the whole time. Matt, honestly, I hate this betting card. I hate it. I think all these favorites are a little overinflated, and it gives me the heebie-jeebies, kind of like last week where these favorites are not necessarily trustworthy favorites. I'm going to pick Sergey Spivak to win this fight. If he gets it to the ground, he's got such an advantage on the ground. The striking disadvantage is much smaller than the grappling advantages in this fight. So I'm going to pick Sergey Spivak to go ahead and get the win. But I don't think I can lay this price tag on him, and it wouldn't surprise me at all if we see a reinvigorated Augusto Sakai that jabs his face off and keeps him running for 15 minutes and squeaks away with a decision in this spot.
Yeah, I'm definitely passing on this fight, but there's two things that stood out to me. They have a common opponent who they fought recently in Marcin Tybura, except that Sakai beat Marcin Tybura and Sergey Spivak lost to Marcin Tybura. So, I mean, we talk about only guys with big muscle twitch beat Spivak, but that's not Marcin Tybura, who's not a big puncher. On the other side, all three losses have one simple thing in common for Augusto Sakai. Those guys are big hitters. Rosenstruck's a big hitter. No one, I mean, Tai Tuivasa might be the biggest puncher actively fighting in the heavyweight division right now since Ngannou never fights anymore. And Overeem. So all three of his losses, Sakai came against monster punchers, guys that have one punch knockout power. That's not really Sergey Spivak. Don't get me wrong. He's going to look like a guy who should be the favorite in there. He's going to be the more athletic guy, the more cut up guy. I just don't know that that's going to be what wins this fight. And I think if it stays standing, Augusto Sakai just has a way of fighting really close, kind of low volume, low output, tight, strategic, technical stand-up fights. And I could see him winning a boring decision on the feet. Obviously, if it goes to the ground, Spivak wins. But I think this one's closer than the spread is saying here. It feels like the favorite should be minus 140 to minus 160, and you're laying over $2.
I agree. I completely agree. And I mean, you look back at Sergey Spivak's run, and he got the win over Tai Tuivasa. That was back in 2019. We know Tai used to be basically a baby, helpless on the ground. He lost to Marcin Tybura, which I know Tybura is one of these, gatekeeper, well-rounded types. Since then, his wins have been Carlos Felipe, who's no longer with the organization and only a boxer, Jared Vanderaa, who is absolutely cut from the organization at this point and is on an awful run. Old man Alexei Oleksiejczuk, the one guy he's not able to beat is a grappler who won't give him that Ezekiel choke. And then he got the win over Greg Hardy, who, again, is just absolutely helpless on the ground. It doesn't get much more striker versus grappler than this fight. Sergey Spivak has to get this fight to the mat. Otherwise, he's not winning this fight. So do I think he gets it to the mat? Yeah, probably does. But it might take him until round 2. It might take him until round 3. So the late finish, when Augusto Sakai gets tired, is always there. You could get that get-out-of-jail-free card. Sergey Spivak could be down 2 rounds to nothing and then get him down in the third and pound him into oblivion. That is possible. But I think Sergey Spivak is going to make this a fight. And because of that, I'm not going to be putting my money on the favorite on this one. It might look easy in hindsight. And my guy Mushroom shouting out here, asking if we ever do parlays or anything like that. Yes, Mushroom, I actually do parlays. That's something that I have kind of gotten away from. I try to keep it to straight bets. With these types of minus 200 favorites, it's super easy to tie them together and go ahead and get parlays done. But I don't think I want to parlay Spivak. That's all it comes down to in this case.
I'm with you. And I actually think if the line climbs high enough, I can make a good case for Augusto Sakai. I'm not sure what the number I need to get back at is, but there is a number, and it's less than plus 200, maybe plus 180, plus 185. Any number like that could certainly probably be tempting enough to make an underdog play here.
Yeah, I think that makes sense, Matt. It's one of those things. People hate it, especially the non-betting or new bettors. They don't really connect the numbers thing. These fights are percentages, folks, and you got to see a range of outcomes. Does Sergey Spivak win this fight 100% of the time? Absolutely not. And that's what everybody thinks is just, pick the winner. He's going to go ahead and say, people are going to go ahead and say that Sergey Spivak is the obvious choice. He's a parlay piece. He's going to win no matter what. But the fact is, there's a percentage chance that he doesn't. There is the time that he gets stood up and can't close the distance. We're counting out the fact that Augusto Sakai can make some adjustments. Maybe he comes back a little bit lighter. His takedown defense is better. His footwork is on point. He can win a decision. Maybe he's the one that ends up getting that knockout over Sergey Spivak because the difference on the feet is drastic enough. I'm just saying you can make an argument for anybody, and the number's got to be right to play it. I don't think the number is right to lay it with Sergey Spivak. I am picking him to win. I'm personally not going to be betting him.
I'm with you.
All right. We are getting down to the good stuff here, folks. Do me a favor. Smash that like button. We've got 295 live viewers hanging out with us this evening. So this is the first Ultimate Fighter matchup of the evening here tonight. Zach, I'm sorry. I should have practiced this name. I read it. And in my brain, I thought I was prepared to speak it. Apparently, I should have spent a little bit more time. So sorry about that, Zach. Taking on Muhammad Usman here in this spot. These are your finalists here in this fight. And unless I'm mistaken, Matt, they actually both come from Team Pena. So one of those interesting situations where both members are from the same team. They spent their time in the house together. They trained together. They worked together. And now they got to fight each other come Saturday night. So that is going to be fun. We are a little bit out of order, guys. Apparently, I clicked the wrong fight. So don't worry. We will get back to the women's MMA fight next, and we'll get those two reversed here for you, unfortunately. Zach trains at Elevation Fight Team, regularly speaking, fast hands, nice footwork, manages range well. He's got good head movement. He's very patient. He makes his opponents make mistakes, and he waits and he watches. Good takedown defense, good balance, real urgency to get back up to his feet when he ever does get taken down. Honestly, guys, Zach reminds me of my guy Action Man. He reminds me a little bit of Chris Curtis. I like the way he fights. He forces you to come to him. He's got a very intelligent jab, and he is really risk adverse. He attacks the body. He keeps you at range. He won episode 1 versus Neal, episode 9 versus Jordan. If you want to go back and watch his fights on ESPN Plus for this season of The Ultimate Fighter. Muhammad Usman, 7-2. We know that last name. He trains out of Fortis MMA, and this guy is bricked up. Strong lead hand. Big winging power hooks with bad intentions. This guy has got some serious power, strength, all muscle, power takedowns. He explodes and reloads, Yoel Romero style. But he has lots of down moments, Matt. There's lots of times in his fights where we get that heavyweight staring contest. Both guys are a little tired. Both guys have exploded once or twice. And then they just kind of sit there and look at each other for a couple of minutes because nobody wants to make the move or make the mistake. Episode 3, he beat Michał. Episode 11, he beat Eduardo Perez via decision. And he looked like a 205er in there against Perez. That guy was freaking massive. If you go back and watch that fight, that guy is a freak of nature. He is huge. Right now, we have got a line here. Zach is a minus 230 favorite. Muhammad Usman is a plus 195 underdog. And this is a little bit sketchy, Matt, because obviously, Usman's got the name. Both these guys, not a ton of experience. It's a low-level fight. But I kind of think that number's playable. I think Zach is going to jab Muhammad Usman to death. If he avoids the knockout bomb, that's really all he's got to do. Because Usman doesn't do much of anything besides walk forward and try and take your head off. Zach is exactly the type of fighter who will stick and move and run and force your opponent to work by using that takedown defense, that get up game, I think Zach is the rightful favorite, and I do think he gets his hand raised here in this fight. The price is a little bit steep once again, but this is one that if you were going to parlay again, I'd be maybe a little bit more interested in playing. What about you?
Yeah, I feel the same. Unfortunately for me, I remember watching that PFL fight versus a 41-year-old Brandon Sales for Usman, and he did not look good. I mean, this did not look like a guy who you thought was going to be able to compete in the UFC. And all of his wins sort of come on a regional level. You know who he lost to way back in the day, don't you, Clint?
I do. He lost to Dante Mays, our boy.
Yeah, Dante Mays also beat Usman here. So, yeah, I don't know how to play Usman here. I don't want to lay such a big price, but I'm having – anytime I want to bet a dog that's plus 180 or bigger, in my mind, I have to have a path to victory for that underdog. I'm just not quite sure what that path is here for Usman. I don't really believe in him anywhere, so I think I'm out on this one.
That's fair enough. That is fair enough. And honestly, like I said, Matt, I think he's KO or bust. I think he's got to get the knockout to get the win. But I think in this spot, he's just too slow. He's too lumbering. He's very predictable. You can see his strikes coming a mile away. And I think Zach is honestly just going to kind of piece him up and jab him to death. I don't know if he finishes him late or something like that, but I think he coasts his way to a decision pretty comfortably in this one, as long as he doesn't do something stupid.
I'm with you. And that's what worries me about the knockout is I'm not sure he has to push it too hard to get the win. And thus why take a chance against the power guy? And I could see him cruising in the second and third and winning 30-27, 30-27, 30-27.
I'll check DK for that unanimous decision prop because it's not going to be a split. That's the way this one's going to go. It's going to be all the judges seeing it the same way. All right, everybody. The other Ultimate Fighter finale fight on this card, Juliana Miller taking on Brogan Walker. And this one is a decent bit more intriguing to me. It's a much closer fight in this case. So right now, we've got Juliana Miller, a minus 125 favorite, plus 105 on Brogan Walker. And this is your classic now versus later type of spot in my mind, Matt. We've got Juliana Miller, not counting the Ultimate Fighter fights. Obviously, those go as exhibition bouts. They're not professional fights on their record. 2-1 as a pro. Just 3 pro fights, not counting her exhibitions. And then Brogan Walker is 7-2. So there is a big difference in experience here. Miller was Team Pena. Walker was Team Nunez, the lone hope for Amanda Nunez to score a win here at the end of this show. Miller is tall, long, and aggressive. She has a really stiff jab, Matt. That was something I saw on the show that she went to just time and time again. I love her jab. She is strong in the Muay Thai clinch, hard knees, aggressive BJJ from her back. She's got a decent body lock on her, but grappling really seems to be where she struggles. She can get kind of out positioned, out moved. She was able to kind of size bully some of these girls in the house, and that's really what made her victorious in a lot of these spots. Is she was too big, too long, too strong for a lot of these Ultimate Fighter girls. We saw her give up some bad positions in scrambles. She lost the hip toss. She made some real mistakes, though, in the grappling. Her striking, I think, is further along than her ground game is. Brogan Walker, on the other hand, is a BJJ black belt. She's got really good movement, an intelligent, fast jab. She's got fast hands altogether. Strong front headlock. She was able to sprawl and control her opponent from that position pretty good. She actually beat Hannah Guy up. Episode 8. She just completely obliterated her with knees from that headlock position on that episode of the show. She's got a big right hook. She likes to bully her opponents up against the fence and use underhooks to kind of grind and drain that time off the clock. I think Miller has a higher ceiling, Matt, but I think Brogan is better now. I would be a little tempted dog or pass here on this spot. I know it's been a couple of months since the show. And back in the day, when we watched the first, the earlier seasons of The Ultimate Fighter, when these fighters came back from a long layoff, they were incredible. They would all go on the show and they'd get picked up by, the elite gyms. And then we'd see them 9 months later and they look nothing like they did on the show. They would look fantastic on the finale compared to what we saw. That's kind of my fear here, is that Juliana Miller has the tools, has the frame, has everything you need to be the better fighter in the long run. but I think Brogan Walker is the more complete fighter at this exact moment. So I would be leaning kind of dog or pass, but if you're looking for that just win spot, if you want to have faith in the higher ceiling, I think Juliana Miller is your girl, and that makes this fight really tough for me to call from a betting perspective.
Yeah, and let's face it, Killer Miller did lose her last fight in Invicta. What really stood out to me was the fact that Brogan Walker has a win over Miranda Maverick in Invicta. I mean, that's a really impressive win. There's not too many wins on any of the resumes of these Ultimate Fighter young ladies better than Miranda Maverick. That was pretty impressive, I thought. So I thought at this point, it feels to me like Brogan Walker is probably still a little bit ahead of her. And to your point, Miller may end up having the better career. But right now at plus money, I think you have to bet Brogan Walker.
Yeah, I think
I can't get over the fact that she beat Miranda Maverick.
That's a huge win. I mean, look how good Miranda's done in the UFC so far. It's a good win. And like I said, it's the grappling. It all comes down to the grappling. Brogan's such an advantage. BJJ black belt obviously knows what she's doing in the wrestling department. And if you're physically strong enough to grapple with someone like Miranda Maverick, I think she'll do okay with somebody taller and longer against Juliana Miller. But what we see is Juliana Miller, these taller, lankier fighters, they got that pogo stick leg, Matt. They've got that kickstand, and sometimes it's really hard to get them to the ground. I think Brogan can pin her up against the fence and just kind of muscle her around and beat her up from that position. So I do still think that there is an opportunity for her to go ahead and just kind of beat Juliana Miller up from a standing position where she can't quite get to the range that she wants to be at. But damn, it's tough. It's really tough because betting on Brogan Walker is fading the improvements from Juliana Miller. Juliana Miller is counting on the height, the reach, the athleticism, saying that she's going to be a better version of her than we saw in the cage the last time she was on the show. It's tough. This is a rough fight.
Yeah, I agree. But I think you have to take plus money with Walker. It just feels like at their points, at each of their right now.
You mean
points,
Brogan, right?
Yeah, Brogan. Yeah, Walker. Yeah.
Okay. Sorry, I got my names mixed up there for a second. For some reason, you said Walker and I heard Miller. I was like, oh, no.
Oh.
All right, everybody. Hey, we're co-main event time. We are almost done with the show here today, everybody. Do us a favor. Smash that like button for us. We got 280 live viewers. Let's freaking go. Next fight up, Vicente Luque taking on Geoff Neal. What a great fight this should be, Matt. We've got two guys who are similar but different. Vicente Luque is that forward prodding marauder type of fighter. He wants to force you into a battle. He wants to take one to give one. He wants to hit you harder in the mouth than you can hit him and just break you over the course of a fight. You've got his opponent here, Geoff Neal, coming off of a sketchy last little run here. Back-to-back losses, got back on the horse in his last fight, winning by split decision, though. A really tough, closely contested fight the last time out. The first time I watched the Neal Ponzinibbio fight, I thought Ponzinibbio won it. On second viewing, going back, doing my tape study, I actually thought it was 1-3 for Geoff Neal. So very close fight. Could have gone either way. I think in the end, the judges did actually end up getting it right. Geoff Neal had a better third round than I gave him credit for, I think, on the initial viewing. But he also should have had a point deducted, I don't know how many times in that fight, for so many fouls. Grabbing the fence, poking the eyes. I mean, he got like 8 warnings in that fight, Matt. He should have had a point taken from him in that fight. He's light on his feet. He's much more of a counter striker. He's very slick with his counter shots. He's got a short right hand hook. He's got big power. He's got that nasty head kick that comes up out of nowhere, but he doesn't do much with the kicks outside of that head kick. And in his last fight, it was a little uncomfortable having Saif Saud screaming at him at the end of round 2, trying to tell him he's not tired, trying to get his head back in the game, get him motivated to go back out there for that third round. I feel like Geoff Neal's confidence is a little bit shook, and I think somebody like Vicente Luque will be able to shake that confidence further by just never going away. If Geoff Neal can't knock out Vicente Luque, which it's good to note that nobody has ever been able to do to this point, I think Vicente Luque will walk him down and melt him. One of the things Ponzinibbio had a whole lot of success with was the leg kicks. And I think Vicente Luque can chip away at Geoff Neal's legs in a big, big way. I actually just put the bet in today, this afternoon, right before the show. Superbook Sports has -170 on Vicente Luque, +150 on Geoff Neal. I am nervous as shit about this fight, Matt, because I have an awful run with Vicente Luque. He's a guy that I've struggled to pick correctly just in general. And I tried to fade him for a very long time. I jumped off the fade train when he fought Bilal, and of course that's when he lost. Could have cashed a nice big underdog ticket there if I had stuck to my guns, but I think this is a perfect fight for him. I think this is exactly the kind of opponent who he can get in there and really mix it up with, a guy who's going to be willing to trade on the feet. And in that kind of a fight, I think you always want to have Vicente Luque, unless it's a fight where he's really just going to exposed by a guy who's got a massive grappling edge on him. I think you got to kind of ride here. So I'm on the Vicente Luque camp. I am a little bit worried about Geoff Neal coming out, putting a singlet on and deciding to try and take him down this fight. But at the end of the day, I think Luque's got enough gas in the tank to get it done. What about you, Matt? What are you doing here?
Yeah, I might go back and watch that Neal Ponzinibbio fight again, because I thought Ponzinibbio won the fight. I gave him 2 and 3 and thought he got it done, but maybe I'll go back and watch the third again.
3
I only watched it
really close. On rewatching, 3 was really close. And it was like the final 2 minutes of the fight where Neal lands a head kick and like a big 1-2 combo, where it was one of those things where I think he just got the most significant moment of the round. And I think that was enough to kind of sway it. But it was a split for a reason. It could have gone either way.
Yeah, for sure. And Geoff Neal's one of those guys that when he doesn't get knockouts, he's low volume enough that it could be problematic sometimes. And you know what's funny is they both beat Bilal Muhammad before, and then all of a sudden he comes out of nowhere and beats Luque, something I thought was a little bit surprising here. But I'm with you. I think Luque is also going to have the grappling advantage. I mean, let's face it, this is MMA, and while we think it's going to be a throwdown, a lot of fights that look like throwdowns on paper, someone goes in there and snags a takedown. And if anyone's going to go in there and snag a takedown in this fight, it feels like Vicente Luque. I can't see Geoff Neal going in there and taking Luque down. So I also think you get a little added edge in that I think Luque could steal a takedown and do some damage ground and pound too. I actually do think it's going to go the distance. Both of these guys have been fairly durable. Luque, very durable. So I think it's probably going over. And if you truly believe the fight's going over and the odds kind of say it, then at the end of the day, Luque's the more accurate striker. He's gonna throw more volume out there, and he might be the one sneaking the takedown. The price may get a little too steep, but at 170, it's certainly at under 200, it's probably playable.
That's how I felt, Matt. That's exactly how I felt, is I thought 200 was kind of my number, and -170 was right in that sweet spot where I thought, you know what? He opened up -140. I missed the best of the number, but I can get in at the okay number. And if you're laying -200, I wouldn't necessarily suggest that, but I do think Luque wins at the end of the day. I wouldn't hate split decision props if you guys want to get a little greasy over there on DraftKings. I don't mind the over. Over 1.5 is juiced up to -190 at this point, but that makes some sense to me too, because if we're thinking it goes all 15, it probably goes over 1.5. So I don't mind paying up to lay that price tag just a little bit. What we've got, you mentioned the striking numbers. I might as well go over that. Geoff Neal averages 4.63 significant strikes per 15 minutes, 49% accuracy. Luque, 5.3 significant strikes per minute with a 53% accuracy. So he is a little bit more offensive, a little bit more aggressive, and he's also a little bit more accurate. The flip side of that, though, is that Vicente Luque has a 53% striking defense, and he averages 5.18 significant strikes absorbed per minute. Geoff Neal averages 4.91 significant strikes absorbed, so slightly less. He's slightly less willing to engage, so it makes sense. But he has a 62% striking defense. That's where he kind of makes up the field here, is that he's a little bit harder to hit. So he's less accurate, a little bit more low volume, a little bit more defensively sound. Luque is more aggressive, but also more accurate. So it's going to be an interesting fight. It's going to be a real back and forth battle. I love this fight. Can't wait to watch it. And we're rolling Luque. Good luck, everybody. That one's going to be an absolute war. And I'm so uncomfortable right now with the, I'll be honest with you guys, with the last little run that I have been on, it is tough to trust myself. So I am keeping this card exceptionally tight. And it really feels like a tricky, trappy, favorite chalky type of card where, yeah, like 80% of these favorites probably come through, but you are not going to see the 2 or 3 dogs that end up pulling up that upset. They're going to surprise and really mess everybody's night up, kind of like my night was last weekend. So good luck on this one, everybody. It should be fun. Main event of the evening, Thiago Santos taking on my guy, Jamahal freaking Hill. Sweet dreams, baby. I love this guy. Y'all know that I've been screaming from the mountaintops that Jamahal Hill is the real next 205er. I know Ankalaev broke my poor guy Anthony Smith's leg last week. That was rough, Matt. I actually really thought Anthony Smith looked very good and very competitive in that first round until he got his leg broken. Just the kind of shit that you can't really count on in MMA. You got to credit Ankalaev for being the one doing the leg breaking, but still very, very sad when you take that big underdog shot and they seem like they're in the fight. I think Jamahal Hill and Ankalaev are on a crash course for that number 1 contender spot. I love it, and I can't wait for that fight to take place. Thiago Santos, he's old and busted. Jamahal Hill's the new hotness. It hasn't been the same since Thiago Santos needed both those knees fixed. He's a lot slower. He's much more plodding. He still wings those big power shots. He dropped Ankalaev, so he's still extremely dangerous, but he just doesn't have what he used to. He's just not the guy that he used to be, unfortunately. Jamahal Hill, on the other hand, exceptionally fast. This guy moves like he weighs 185 or 170 pounds. He is so quick, high volume, accurate punches. He's got that knockout power. He's big too. And a lot of people want to talk about the fact that he can get taken down. And it's true. His takedown defense is a little sketchy. Jamahal Hill could stand to work on that takedown defense, but it's his get-up game. He's one of these guys that you can take down 15 times in a fight. He's not getting tired. You're getting tired trying to keep him down because he will stand back up and make you work every second of that fight for that takedown. If you guys haven't figured it out, I like Jamahal Hill. I like him a lot. I bought in on this guy a long time ago, and we've made some good money backing him, especially as an underdog in his last couple of fights. Hill is a minus 275 favorite here in this spot. Thiago Santos plus 235. I think Thiago is very much KO or bust in this spot. And if Jamahal plays his cards right, I think he gets in and out without getting landed on with anything big, puts that speed and athleticism and youth to work. And I think he probably ends up clipping Thiago Santos and putting him away at some point in this fight. How about you, Matt? How do you see this main event fight playing out?
Yeah, I'm with you. I think there's a certain point in every fighter's career when you're not fighting for the title again. And that's difficult for guys who have been in there fighting for the title to realize that that dream is over and you're not in, and now you're just fighting for pay. You're not fighting to be the champion of the world anymore, to follow this great dream. You are strictly fighting for pay. And at 38 years old, Thiago Santos losing 4 of his last 5 fights is strictly fighting for pay. But you still look at the resume and it's awful impressive. I mean, all it is huge name after huge name. I mean, Ankalaev, yeah, he lost a decision. He lost to Alexander Raychik, who we know is an unbelievable fighter. Glover Teixeira, who just lost the title. John Jones, the former champion. And before that, he beat Jan. So his resume is still like the who's who of anyone who's ever been great at 205. But at 38, he does seem a step slow and he does seem a step heavy in his approach. To your point, now that he knows he's not champ, he's never going to be champ again at his age, probably. Why not go out and put on a show? See if you can get the extra $50K. Go for that knockout early. Add to your payday. It feels like he's been doing some of that lately. And if he doesn't get it, I just don't know that in a volume match, Hill versus Santos doesn't feel close. And Santos, everyone always said he has a good ground game. We never really saw it in the UFC. I've heard people talk about his jiu-jitsu is great. He's actually really strong. His wrestling defense and offense are really productive in camp. We don't tend to see that as much in the UFC. He's kind of been a knockout or bust guy for a little while now. And when he gets them, they're super impressive. Just look at Jan or Johnny Walker. but he's getting them less frequently, right? And now all of a sudden he's lost 4 or 5, and it's just hard for me to back him here. What I could see is making a stronger case for the under, although when I looked at the odds, it was 2.5 under -40, which I don't like as much. I think I'd have to get like at least even to play it. But if you can find even on under 2.5, Thiago Santos has shown a willingness to go for the finish still. At 38, he's not trying to ride out and coast to paychecks. He will go for the finish, and that's going to leave him susceptible to potentially getting finished himself. So I think under 2.5, if you get the right price, has some value.
I don't mind that. Right now, Superbook is only hanging the 1.5. Over 1.5 is -145. If you want violence on that number, it's +125. So I think they kind of tend to think the same way you do, Matt, because if you're getting +125 on the 1.5, 2.5 is probably the move. Looking under 2.5 doesn't sound half bad to me. And that does protect you from that Thiago Santos bomb rather than laying it with Jamahal Hill, on the off chance that he runs into something kind of the way he did against Paul Craig and eats a big shot and goes down. You never know. That might happen. Thiago's got that kind of power, so you definitely could play it safe going with violence. Guys, I am emotionally invested. It's Brandon Moreno fight week all over again. I didn't bet my boy because I've got such a fan attitude towards him. And I'll be honest with you, Matt, I thought Cachoeira was taking over that fight. Just before the liver kick, I thought Cachoeira had won rounds 2 and 3 and was really starting to pull away in that third round. And if we looked at those judges' scorecards, it was 1-1-1. Every single judge had it differently. I thought Brandon Moreno was maybe starting to fall behind a little bit. So I'm very glad that he hit the liver and shut that fight off when he did. Glad I stayed off it from a betting perspective as well, because that's one of those you got the win, but it was about to get hairy type of situations. I was sweating it enough as a fan. That's going to be me this Saturday, folks. I'm picking Jamahal Hill to win. I think he should win this fight. Maybe we play violence. Maybe we play a knockout prop. But that's it. I'm not laying -275 on the money line. I've got enough. I'm going to be sweating bullets enough, just hoping my guy gets his hand raised at the end of the day. That's it for UFC Vegas 59. I'm stuck in UFC 277 talking about Brandon Moreno. Matt, thank you so much for sparing the time to hang out with me here on the show, talk to us about these fights. Now would be a wonderful time. The floor is yours if you want to tell the people what you've got going on, where they can find you or anything like that coming down the pipe.
Yeah, the interesting thing to me that has stood out, well, first, if anyone wants to find me, you could just go to US Integrity or Matthew Holt at US Integrity. But what I think is really interesting lately is the number of main card fights we're seeing end in injury. And I think because of that variant, and the UFC has to do something to figure it out. Leg kicks are becoming too commonly used component, and too many shins are hitting shins, and some of them are breaking here. But we also saw the T-City shoulder injury, the Tom Aspinall freak injury. There are so many crazy injuries that you have MMA betting over the last few months almost seems like completely random and chaotic, because such a large percent of the fights, like maybe 15% of the fights in the last 6 weeks, end with a freak injury rather than ending with one fighter beating the other fighter because he was winning. So, and now what, 4 straight cards? We have a main card fight and big ones, T-City, Aspinall. Now we have another one on this card, on the main card with Ankalaev. I think that adds a lot of randomness to fights, and it's something that has to be considered when people start looking at big favorites or matches that they think are mismatches, that we get a lot of fights now end in freak injury, and the randomness suddenly in MMA is probably greater than it's ever been.
That is a great point, and especially those main event freak injuries has been really rough. I mean, with that kind of stuff and with betting that, we know how it goes. It's all variance. It'll even itself out, but it's super weird that it's all been happening so tightly lately. So many things where that situation has been popping up. Hopefully the MMA gods sip some coffee, take a chill pill, just kind of hang out. Cause the injuries, we don't want to see those. That's not anything that we need more of.
No.
Matt, I want to say thank you again so much for joining me here. Guys, we have 250 live viewers at this point in the show. Got that new exciting opportunity that I want to talk to you about here at the end of the podcast. Matt, if you want to bounce, you're more than welcome to stick around, but you're also free to go to dinner and have your night back if you don't want to hang for this part of the show.
I love dinner, so I appreciate it. Thanks, Clint. Thanks, everybody. Good luck with the card this week.
Thanks a lot, Matt. All right, guys. I mentioned at the top of the show, and I'm sorry, you guys know how I do. I got dual laptops working here. I forgot to switch my notes over to the actual stream laptop before we got started here. So I do apologize. I'm scrambling here a little bit to try to get this thing set up for you. I want to talk to you guys about what is going on at Spectation Sports. Now, they did not get me the codes yet that they're supposed to be getting to me, but I'm going to be tweeting those out, on social media and stuff like that. And I'll post them here in the description of the show later on in the week once I get those from them. But basically, again, really cool. As MMA fans, something we all want to keep our eyes on here. They are trying to bring sports betting, sports gambling to regional MMA. And they reached out to me as a sports bettor, as a guy who knows knows the sports, knows value, knows how to work the odds. I have been helping them as their odds maker for these regional shows. Okay. So I have been setting the odds for Spectation Sports regional scene fights. I get to talk with the promoters. I get to work with people on the back end. And then I set these odds for these regional fights. And what I am here to tell you guys about is, again, Spectation Sports is the website where you'll be able to view these fights online when they happen, when they go live. There are multiple sports betting outlets that are mostly local that are going to be picking up these regional fights and allowing people to bet on them. Now, some of them you have to be in the state for, but there are some of them that are going to get picked up by books that may offer them more often as Spectation Sports grows and gets legalized and makes more contacts with other, jurisdictions and things like that. We'll see more and more and more of this. Guys, it's just more MMA, and it's more MMA betting for you. Now, I cannot bet on these. Like I said, I'm literally their odds maker. So I cannot bet on these fights, but I can tell you what I know, and I can tell you what I set the line at based on the information that I have. So this is a perfect opportunity that if you guys think I'm an idiot and I don't know what I'm talking about, I'm literally the dude that set the line. Now, I'm not involved in the bookie or anything like that. I'm not taking your money or anything. They're paying me a fee to set the odds. And then from there, the bookmakers use those to do the risk management portion of the betting. So don't worry, my money is not directly involved. I'm not taking any money from you guys or anything like that. Like I said, I'm just getting paid as an odds maker for them. But what we've got is a fun little card here. This is Maverick MMA 20. And the way I think this can really help us moving forward is that these are fighters that may damn well end up in the UFC soon. These are guys that we're going to want to learn the names of and want to know their strengths and weaknesses. And when they get picked up on the Contender Series and when they get picked up by the UFC, we're going to know more about them because of this opportunity. So something that's really cool, and on a random Thursday or Friday night, you'll have an extra MMA show that you didn't otherwise have. So first up, we've got this Kyle Winters, and he's taking on Ross Kubel. This is actually a pretty fun fight, guys. This one is, let me get, again, sorry, I'm dual screening here. So, and what the hell is wrong with, okay, I cannot figure StreamYard out today. We're just going to have to deal with it. I actually don't mind this little half window thing that it's doing right here, right now. So what we've got on this first fight, 170 pounds, Russ Kubel is actually making his professional debut, 7-3 as an amateur. Alex Brown, 1-3. Russ is actually... He lost to this stud, Jason Manning, on the regional scene. He was a high school wrestler, so he's primarily a grappler. He actually doesn't have much in the way of striking, but he likes to drag people to the floor, beat them up once they get down there. Alex is a guy that took the fight immediately. As soon as they offered him Russ, he immediately jumped on it. And this guy's an all striker, very dangerous, very explosive on the feet. Previous training partners with guys that are, higher up, well-known. He's the favorite here in this spot for a reason. What I did was I lined Alex Brown as a decent sized favorite here in this spot. I gave him at -150, basically because it's striker versus grappler. If Kubel gets it to the ground. He's the type of guy that'll wear on you, rough you up, that kind of thing. So he's a live dog in this spot, but I'm pretty sure Alex Brown is going to win the fight. They've got that previous connection, and Brown apparently knew who Russ Kubel was. So the fact that he jumped at the opportunity to take the fight, I do favor him to win. But again, it's low-level MMA. Both these guys are still just kind of getting their feet wet as pros. So be careful if you want to bet on that one. The next fight that we want to talk about here, Alex. But what the hell is wrong with my tabs? That's Alex Brown. I'm sorry, guys. Kyle Winters was not in that fight. That's Alex Brown right there. Okay. Again, sorry. First run on this, guys. So bear with me. It will get better. It'll be cleaner in the future. Christian Carr is 5-1 as an amateur. I believe he's making his pro debut. Shaquan Moore is 1-3 as a pro. So he's got that professional level experience already. It's another debuting fighter situation, which you always got to be, a little bit cautious about here. What I did for this one is I've got Shaquan Moore as a gigantic underdog. Christian Carr is legit, guys. He's 0-0, so he doesn't have any pro experience, but this is one of those fights where the promotion is looking to get their kid a win, right? He's 0-0. It's his professional debut. I made him a -500 favorite, +400 on Shaquan Moore. I've got the under set at +175 for the under 2.5. The over is -200. We're going to see Christian Carr out-grapple this guy. That's how this fight is going to go. He's an absolute stud. He's one of the best up-and-comers that this Maverick MMA organization has to offer. He's a training partner with Bill Algeo. This guy is well-rounded. So for being a 0-0, having his pro debut here, he's going to be a guy that's got all the skills that you need to transition to being into a professional MMA fighter. Now, Shaquan is a guy that actually, you guys remember Bazooka last week on the Dana White Contender Series? Moore fought him twice. And both times he fought very competitively. He lost both times, but he fought very competitively. So what we've got is Shaquan Moore, who's got a well-rounded skill set. He's decently durable. I think he's going to be able to hang in there, and I think he's going to get out-wrestled and out-grappled. So that's where I have set the line for that one. Now, the main event, all you guys need to know is LJ. LJ is the all-star, 5-star, 10-diamond, whatever you want to hear about. This kid is legit. We're going to see this kid on Contender Series. We're going to see this kid in the UFC. He is the next big up-and-coming thing from this regional scene organization. And he's going to absolutely run through this guy. He's the biggest prospect that they've had. They've known him since he was a kid. He's one of these kids that, his dad got him into MMA when he was 6, so he got, brought up and things like that. He's got 3 amateur wins, all in round 1. He's just an absolute monster. We don't know a whole lot about Kyle. He's 1-1 as a pro. The organizer for this MMA scene doesn't have a whole lot of information on him, except that he was ballsy enough and tough enough to go ahead and take this fight against a very well-known prospect. So, maybe he's a live underdog, but I set this line pretty damn high. I made LJ a -800 favorite, Kyle Winters a +650 underdog. I think he's kind of got that puncher's chance situation going on, but I absolutely think that LJ is going to run through this kid. So that's what we got, guys. That is the breakdown here for this upcoming fight card. I actually think it's fun. I think it's fun that we're going to have regional scene MMA coming around. I think we're going to be able to, well, not me, you guys might actually be able to make some money on these regional shows. And like I said, I'm going to tell you what I know. I'm going to tell you what odds I gave them, and do with that information what you will. But I will have a code that's got a discount so you can sign up at Spectation Sports. That's the company that is hosting these regional shows, and you'll be able to watch them online from their website, things like that. Obviously, it's going to be a subscription model because they're going to get these different regional organizations to allow them to stream through their platform. But I'll get you guys a code that's going to have a discount. As soon as they hand that to me, I'll be putting it in the descriptions. I'll tweet it. I'll pass it along, stuff like that. So really fun. Expect these anytime there's one of these shows that's big enough for them to go ahead and get me to be involved. I will do a segment at the end of the podcast like this to kind of tell you my thoughts on it, let you know about the show, and kind of point you in the right direction if you want to be involved. I love it. Give me all the MMA that we can get, and it's a really cool opportunity for me to really kind of flex the odds making side of my brain, kind of help me pin down what makes a fighter worth what value from a bookmaker's perspective. Hopefully that strengthens my ability to handicap fights and be a better sports bettor in general. So Thank you guys very much for tuning in with me. 225 live viewers here at the end. I'm surprised as many of you stuck around for that last bit as you did. You guys know I love you. The real ones, you guys are supporting me through all this, and you know the show is meant to be entertainment first. I'm hoping that we can, keep the good times rolling. And winning is far more fun than losing, obviously. So we want to get back on track. Mike asking me, do you get anything if we bet it? If I bet it, will you get a percent? No, Mike, I was very, very specific at the beginning of it on that. Guys, I need you to hear me here. There's these weird people out there that think that I work for the bookies. I get nothing. They're paying me a flat rate to review the card and understanding these fighters' skill sets, set lines. I put those lines on a piece of paper. Technically, it's an email. I send them to the guy. I don't know what bookmaker gets it. I don't know what bookmaker moves them. I don't know how aggressively they apply risk on it. I make the initial lines based off of my information, and I get a flat rate for doing that job. I am not involved in the gambling. I am not involved in you guys placing bets. I am not taking bets. I'm simply not betting on these fights because personally, I feel like it would be unethical for me to be the one setting the line and then turn around and bet it, because obviously if I'm, you'd give yourself value on a certain side of it. Not doing that shit, not getting involved in it. I'm telling you guys why I made the line what it is. And then when the shows go live in their regional scenes and when the odds come up on the sports books, you guys have the direct link to me to go, oh, Clint said that guy's a favorite because he's a really good wrestler. That's the idea. If you want to bet it, go for it. If you want to research it and get into some regional shows, it's going to be fun. Go for it. If you just want something cool, some more MMA to watch on a Thursday or Friday night, that's what I'm here for. And I think the more we get of MMA, the better. And like I said, this is really kind of a good future thing, because if we practice breaking these guys down when they get to the Contender Series, when they get to Bellator, PFL, the UFC, we're already going to be familiar with them. We can have a substantial edge over the other bettors out there and even the real bookies and odds makers out there, because we're going to be familiar with these regional guys. So I think it's a strengthening thing. I think it's a tool that we can use. Hopefully that's something that it pans out kind of for the long haul, obviously, because we got to wait for these 0-0 fighters to hit 4-0 so that they can get bought by a big organization or something like that. But, here we go. Oh, kicking is for losers. Jesse bringing out the old kicking is for losers. I love it. Football season right around the corner, folks. Cannot wait. Fantasy football, degenerate Sunday action. We're going to be all over it. Don't you worry. Guys and ladies and everybody in between, you have a wonderful week. Get out there, kick some ass. I'm going to be very tight on this fight card, not only because I'm scared shitless coming off of a gigantic loss. Yes, I am. But also because this fight card is extremely dangerous. It's just like last week. We've got big favorites who should win, but they might shit the bed. So be careful. Good luck on all your degenerate action, guys. Hit me up on Twitter, Instagram, whatever, if you have any questions or anything like that moving forward. I love you guys, all of you, for the support. Even the haters giving me the motivation to prove your ass is wrong. It's just fantastic, and I appreciate you guys all sticking with me. Hit the like button on your way out if you haven't already. Let's roll.